This is another video in my series making the positive case for conditional immortality by going through the Bible. Now I'm trying to make these as succinct as possible, so there's a lot of theology and questions I will be just ignoring as I go through this, but if you want to put something in the comments and have me respond to it, feel free to. The two things I want to point out in the conditional immortality discussion from Genesis 1. The first one is a note I didn't make about verse 1, which is God is assumed. He's assumed to be the creator and therefore outside time and material space. But also this highlights that God is eternal in his essence, whereas we are not. And we'll get to that as we continue going. So only God is eternal at this point. He is the creator. And then in Genesis 1:26 to 27, we get the creation of humanity, or at least one story of creation, because Genesis 2 has a slightly different take on things. And we'll get to that in the next video, probably. But here we go about the creation of humanity. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock, all the wild animals, the earth, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female. He created them. Now, various commentators, especially those who defend eternal torment, make an assumption here that being made in the image of God means that we also assume some of God's attributes, namely that we have something immortal within us. And we'll look more into this when we look at Genesis chapter 2. But this is what John Piper says in relation to directly connecting to being made in the image of God. He says, "You are an embodied soul who will live forever in heaven or in hell, created in the image of God, unlike mere animals, and so as a Christian, bought with the blood of the Son of God and indwelt by the very Spirit of God himself." So he's tied embodied soul to be forever in a location because we're made in the image of God. Now, I'd just like to note that that's not in this text. It's not in Genesis 1, and we'll look at Genesis 2 tomorrow. But the assumption is being made in the image of God gives us some sort of immortality. Now, this is a leap, and there is a long tradition of doing this leap, but it is a leap from the text. What I do think the image of God means, let me quote John Walton on his commentary on this. "The image of God is an important theological concept, both in Old and New Testaments. And in the ancient world, an image was believed in some ways to carry the essence of that which it represented. It didn't necessarily look the same. Rather, the deity's work was thought to be accomplished through that idol or that image." So God's work is accomplished through us, and that makes sense of the church and future New Testament theology, and also Jewish theology in a lot of ways. So that's what the image of God is doing here. We are his images, and I think it's controversial in the time because kings and pharaohs were thought to be deities, or at least images of God. The Bible says we all are, and I think that's quite cool, that we all have dignity and worth, male and female, in equal value, made in God's image. So those are the thoughts. Hold on to the immortality debate. We will get into that next chapter. But immortality for humanity is nowhere to be seen in Genesis 1. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts. See you in a bit.